The man who calls Sunday Night Football on NBC and is going to be calling the big Sunday Night Football game of Super Wild Card Weekend, fresh off of thawing out from Green Bay, watching the Detroit Lions eliminate Green Bay and send Seattle to San Francisco to kick off that Super Wild Card Weekend. Joining us here on this edition of the Rich Eisen Show is my friend, Mike Tirico. How are you, Mike?
I believe the falsetto class was added after my departure.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. The curriculum was not as in-depth. We were just kind of trying to put the tubes in the back of the TV, you know, and
Yes.
I had to help people watch TV. And back in the old days, yeah, I'm old school now. So.
What was the first game you called at Syracuse? You remember? What was the first one?
Game of anything that I called is Syracuse football at Virginia Tech in 1985 as a sophomore on the radio.
Okay, so Who was the quarter? Walk me through the starting lineups of that day. What do you got?
Wow, so Syracuse, geez. Now, I don't have that chart available at the moment, Rich, but we're talking the Don McPherson era of quarterback at Syracuse. It's before Blacksburg became the I guess, attraction that it is in college football right now.
Yes.
So I remember specifically, we drive to all the games. Dick McPherson was the head coach at Syracuse.
Yes.
One of my favorite people ever be around. You drove up to the Lane Stadium at that time, and it was really just bleachers, no boxes. There were cows out on the front area of over to the left of the stadium because there's a great ag department at Virginia Tech. Those were good Syracuse teams. They had some NFL guys. Moose Johnson was on the team. Their best receiver was Scott Schwade, who had a punt return for touchdowns.
There you go.
First good call that I had in my life.
There you go.
And Tim Green, who's on Fox for a long time, terrific author, has dealt with some unfortunate medical issues since he was on the team. Doug Marrone would have been on that team.
There you go. I knew. See,
there you go.
There you go. I knew it would take you some time, but you'd get to some of the notables right there.
Yeah.
And then in terms of basketball, I think that was Ronnie Cycli's 9th year of eligibility, 1985, right?
No, see,
wasn't that?
The good news was that's when you could actually name people on basketball teams that were not your own.
Oh,
college basketball has become this nameless abyss because of guys who play 1 year and go on to the NBA. And that's not begrudging anybody. It's just the platform has changed where guys don't stay for 2 or 3 years. But Derek Coleman, Ronnie Cycli, Sherman Douglas, Stevie Thompson, good teams on Big Monday on a regular basis. Those were the salad days, if you will.
My gosh, that was the Big East being the Big East days, and you mentioned Big Monday. I remember doing Sports Centers on Big Mondays in between games 2 and 3 of Big Mondays, man. And that's when the Big Mondays were born in the 80s, and I got there in 96,
That's right, and that's when that's when you sneak in like a Big West game at midnight as well.
That's right.
And I remember when the studios, I don't know if you were there at that point, when the studios were not, we didn't have enough studio space for everything we were doing.
Yeah.
And then a garage to house some of the trailers and go around the country, the production trucks. They converted one of those into a studio. We did NFL Prime Monday, the precursor to Monday Night Countdown, in a garage studio. And then we would do hoop wraps. So you do cold nights in January where you're waiting for the midnight game and you walk out and it's freezing cold and it's snowed, it's miserable. Those are good days.
I think I might have done a deuce wrap, a couple of administrations removed from the Fennis Dembo days of Wyoming basketball. I might have done that. And I remember the garage is famous for the time where I think Kilborn refused to do a Duke, North Carolina halftime because it was on ESPN2. I think that was a famous moment in the garage, Studio 5 or whatever it was called back in the day.
I think Fowler, when it was the WAC, I don't know if it was Chris or somebody.
Right.
Somebody dubbed it the midnight snack from the WAC. When WAC basketball was a staple of the midnight window on a couple of those nights.
Oh my gosh.
Those are fun days. College hoop wraps in the garage.
I remember all those days too, man. And Mike Tirico joining us here before the Ravens and the Bengals, and Fowler. I just had him in the studio last Friday calling the national championship game. It is just amazing. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show, Mike Tirico. Let's jump into it. Looks like is Tyler Huntley. What do you think? First blush right now. You don't have a crystal ball, as coaches like to say, but. I don't know. That you might get Huntley v. Burrow on Sunday night now.
Waiting to hear what happens at practice today. This Lamar Jackson situation is interesting. Is interesting in so many ways, Rich. Let's just start with the basics. You're talking about a guy who's got a PCL injury. We we don't know because we haven't been getting the medical updates, but he hasn't been at practice at all, right? We were there for a game. He wasn't on the field even watching practice, which I found to be unique. Then you wrap it all into, what about the contract? What do you do? This is the end of a second straight season where he's missed multiple games at the end of the year because it was an ankle injury last year. It's a knee injury this year.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make a decision on a long-term contract. He's his own agent. There's a lot of questions. The Roquan Smith deal yesterday leaves them space to make him the franchise player. But in the immediate, in the short term, this team can win a 16-13 game with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. They've done it. I thought Huntley was really good the year before, Rich.
Yep.
Remember the Green Bay game, which was his first start?
Unbelievable.
He was up and down the field with Aaron, and he hasn't been that good this year. Can he be that version of Tyler Huntley in the playoffs in Cincinnati? If he can put a couple of touchdowns on the board, it gives them a chance against Baltimore. Against Cincinnati. If not, I don't think Baltimore can win a game like that. I really don't.
Well, he had 2 in the air, 2 on the ground against Green Bay, and that was a game where John Harbaugh decided to go for 2 at the end because Aaron Rodgers was torching his defense, and he wanted to just get the win right there. And you're right that the difference between that day and that team and this one is they are receiver challenged right now. I mean, when I saw them in Week 15, Browns-Ravens in Cleveland, they were in the midst of a 10-game stretch without a single offensive touchdown from a wide receiver, 0. And Mark Andrews was on a streak like that as well. And it just maybe they'll run Huntley more than they did because there is no tomorrow. I think that might be the way we're looking at the Ravens going into this game, unless Lamar has a 72-hour period that we haven't seen him have over the last 4 weeks. I don't know.
And you can make the argument. It shows you how valuable he is to this team and this offense. And it's a contract that if you don't pay him, you're not going to find a guy to replace his unanimous MVP level skill set that we saw when he won the award in 2019. But by the same token, if he doesn't play and you continue on this path, can you play winning football and win a game in different styles? That's what the playoffs. Sometimes you've got to find different ways to win a game. What if Cincinnati jumps out and they go, boom, touchdown, second touchdown, and now you're down 14-0? How do you play? Can you stick to the run? At some point, does somebody make a play? And their receiving core right now is Demarcus Robinson, who they added to be a 3, and it's become a 1 because Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Robinson, Sammy Watkins, James Prochet, and Tylan Wallace, who's been out most of the year and is just back up the last couple of weeks. That's it. That's their entire wide receiving core. If you fall behind a team like Cincinnati and the way Burrow and those guys can get going, you can't win that football game with that receiving core.
Mike Tirico here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then, of course, the Bengals, you're calling the first game of the AFC title defense of the Cincinnati Bengals and the right to what appears to be go to Buffalo, because Buffalo's going to start the Sunday that you're finishing on NBC with Chris Collinsworth and the rest of the crew against Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins offense that couldn't put up a point in the end zone against the Jets. So we're just assuming this is going to end up being, I know what assuming means sometimes, for the right to go to Buffalo. And the sense of Cincinnati is they're one of the hottest teams coming into the playoffs. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do in their title defense, Mike.
Me too. They haven't lost since Halloween, Rich. And, you watch Burrow and you just feel a confidence around Burrow, the receiving trifecta trio. The way they were running the ball with Mixon was not good at the start. It's gotten better. It's not great, but it's gotten better. On the defensive side, they continue to make plays. Lou Anarumo, as we start to throw out all these names about this assistant coach deserves a look, and so does this one. So does Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, who did a terrific job of moving the board and changing chess pieces and strategies last year as part of the Bengals playoff run, and he's done it again this year. And look, you're gonna get all the attention on the offensive side when you've got Burrow and Chase and Boyd and Higgins and all those guys. And don't forget the former Raven Hayden Hurst, who's now really kind of found a good role with the 50-plus catch season. This defense, they continue to make plays and use their personnel very well. I like them in this playoff run, and I like Anarumo as a candidate who I think teams that are looking should take a harder look. I haven't heard all the rumors and every name that gets thrown out there, but usually it's offensive guys. Well, Lou Anarumo is one that absolutely should be looked at, I think, by the folks with the 5 openings right now in the NFL.
Well, if you need a fact or a nugget about Lou Anarumo for the game, Mike, he went to high school with my brother, and I went to high school with his sister, Susan E. Wagner High School in Staten Island, New York. If you want, I can text you that information if you don't have a pen right now. So there you have it. For you.
Very familiar with Susan B. Wagner High School. As a matter of fact, I think my alma mater, Bayside High School, played Susan B. Wagner in a playoff game.
It's Susan E. Wagner. Yes, it's yes, no relation to Susan B. Anthony, but Susan E. Wagner High School, which is where Lou went to high school with Jeffrey Eisen, and I went with Elena Anarumo.
Let me make that correction. Susan E. Anthony.
Yeah, right, correct. There you go. Very good, Mike. But so again, if there's a blowout, again, just if you really just need to empty the case, you can just do that.
Island Rich.
Yeah.
Hey, so and you guys did a great job with your TV studio partners in the booth. I enjoyed the Immaculate Reception 50-year anniversary game and the tone of that, and the game overseas too. It was fun listening to you guys.
Thank you.
As you know, now doing games as you have for the last few years, there's a nugget or two that you always want to get into a game that you just don't get to.
Yep.
And I tell you the one that, because of the way the Lions-Packers game went, I didn't have a chance to get to. If the AFC Championship game is a neutral site game, let's go to Lambeau. Let's go to Lambeau. It's about an 80-mile difference if you go Buffalo to Green Bay, Kansas City to Green Bay. This is assuming that those are the two teams that are in it, because that would be the scenario would happen.
Yes.
Let's where I shouldn't say this without looking it up, but think of all the championship games that have been played at Lambeau over the years. There's no real home field because it's an NFC venue.
Right.
They're both outdoor cold weather teams.
Yep.
So I say, if it's going to happen, let's go to Lambeau.
You know what? I do think an AFC Championship game at a neutral site should be played in a cold weather outdoor. I agree with you on that front, because you got 2 cold weather outdoor games. Fellow Syracuse alum Chris Brockman thinks it should be a warm weather site or a dome, right? That's what you're looking for?
Mike, Tom Coughlin's face still hasn't unfrozen since the last.
Hey, I swear during the game, I almost brought up Tom Coughlin's face when I kept looking at Dan.
Yeah, right.
His nose.
Oh, my gosh. Very Coughlin-like. Very Coughlin-like.
The first thing I thought of, and I'm like, it's too far down the road. People might not remember, but I'm like, Dan, come on, man. Are we that cold? So that was a heck of a game. That was an impressive performance by his team.
Unreal.
And, all the folks who had their laughs at biting kneecaps and all that stuff. I think they've seen the reality of what truly setting a culture means by those guys going in there. And they were almost energized by the fact that it was their last shot, that they couldn't get in the playoffs. It was an impressive performance.
Well, before I let you go, I do want to hit you up, Mike Tirico, on the way the game ended. And by that, I don't mean the actual on the field, but you picking up on the microphone, Jameson Williams coming up to him, the rookie wide receiver of Detroit, asking Aaron Rodgers for his jersey. And you heard him say, I'm going to hold on to this one. And you picked up on that right away, saying, could this be part of the conversation about what he wants to do moving on? And then he had that moment where he shoved a camera out of the way so you can have a private walk up the tunnel with Randall Cobb. Was there anything that you heard, picked up in any of the meetings prior to the game, conversations, buzz about Rodgers and his future there at all?
Yeah, not specifically. It was just a tone, and look, it's been oxygen for your and other shows for the last few years. The off-season atmosphere filled with speculation of where will it be. And it wasn't necessarily could it be the end, is it? And Aaron was very clear with us when we met with him during the year that if this season got out of hand for them, they might look at Jordan Love. They may decide organizationally, because they've got they've got a bunch of decisions. Rodgers is under contract for 2 more years. They've got decisions to make about, do they start to go younger? They've got 2 young receivers. Do they start to move in that direction and move on from some of the veterans? We've seen teams do that. As we know, Parcells always told you, hey, say goodbye a year early as opposed to a year too late. That's how you stay relevant and keep going. I based that question on what were they going to do with Jordan Love. It sounds like from the quote that you heard at the end of the regular season from management, they've seen enough of Jordan Love and know what they have to be confident in giving him the 5th-year option and making a decision on that by May. That is okay, because that really doesn't kick in financially until the following year. they can run it back. But I think Aaron's aware of that. And, Aaron, just because Tom's doing this at 45 doesn't mean that Aaron's going to do it till he's 43 or 44 or 45. So you just sense nothing specific, but just in general that there's a possibility, whether it's never again in the NFL or never again with the Packers, that Aaron was going to appreciate the moment just in case it is the end. And that just kind of fueled it. And maybe it's the end for Randall Cobb, and we don't know if Randall told Aaron anything about that. But to see those two wait for each other and walk off arm in arm just felt more than we got knocked out at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, we're showing a photograph of it like Rodgers is looking up into the stands. And he's been doing that during the 4-game win streak, too, when he leaves Lambeau and then, give him the I love you sign with his hand. But, and it did feel like this is the last walk for the two of them together. But we had Andrew Whitworth in studio yesterday, and he had a unique take on what you caught on the microphone of saying, I'm going to hold on to this one, was maybe Rodgers' way of being polite to a rookie wide receiver coming up and having the temerity to ask for his jersey after being eliminated like that and being polite, saying, I'm going to hold on to this one. Like that.
Well, it was interesting.
That's
Aaron said at the press conference that I think he and Williamson had that conversation the game in Detroit.
Oh.
And he's like, I'll get you in Green Bay. So he kind of even added to that a little bit. Like there was already some foundation laid for that. It wasn't taking the ball up to Tom Brady after picking him off.
Oh, my God. Dre Greenlaw. I mean, talk about that. Yeah, that moment holds the beer of this moment. I mean, no question. My goodness. I mean, hey, Tom, I just picked you off in front of your whole family here and in the spot where you grew up and you wanted to be with wearing this uniform. And how'd you like? Can you sign this football that I picked off from you? I'm like, my gosh. Good
Rich,
Lord.
In the spirit of Joe Horn and the cell phone, or Mixon and the coin in the sock last week, when is the DB going to pull a Sharpie out of his sock after he picks a guy and then run right up to the quarterback with a Sharpie?
Right, on the spot, like real time.
You just gave someone the idea, so this week.
Or you can combine the two and take out the cell phone and then Instagram Live it, You can combine the two.
As much as we laugh, probably coming to a game near you within the next 10 years.
Sunday night. Maybe Sunday night. We'll see.
I'll be ready for it.
Mike Tirico, thanks for the call. As always, you take care.
You too, pal. All the best. You guys keep crushing it. My Sunday mornings start with you all, and
thanks.
You and the guys do an incredible job.
Thank you.
And Rachel and the team as well, and Cynthia.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work, bud.
Thank you. Same to you, Mike Tirico. There's Mike Tirico. Sunday Night Football on NBC. Calling Ravens-Bengals AFC wildcard game Sunday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on NBC and, yes, Peacock. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern for free.